What's up, guys? It's KB. Make sure you subscribe to the Underground Sports Philadelphia YouTube channel. Click the bell icon down below so you don't miss a single video from us. And thanks for tuning in to another video from Underground Sports Philadelphia. Now let's get into it.
Philadelphia, baby, you're gonna love it. Best sports fans in the world. Actually, the worst, but that's what makes them the best.
What is going on? Welcome back to Top Bins World Cup edition, World Cup final edition. We got our teams set. We got the bracket completely set. Only 2 games left in this tournament. We're going to break down everywhere we've been since last week and preview a little bit at the weekend. I'm your host, Matt, joined by my co-host, Dom. Dom, how are you this evening?
Feeling good right now, man. Feeling good. Exciting game that we had today, which was Wednesday, right? So whenever you guys are listening to this, France played Morocco today. So had that on while I was in my department meeting after school today. So, priorities.
Yeah, I think you and a lot of other people we're doing that today. Yes, France ending the dreams of Morocco. First African team to make it to the semifinals, could have also been the first African team to make it to a final. That ended in the semi today. Not without a little bit of noise, though. Morocco definitely played well in that game. France just, had those individual moments of quality that we've seen so often over the course of this tournament. And that's what prevailed today. It's what we saw them beat England with as well. Those individual moments that just provided the brilliance that England were not able to match. Harry Kane missing a crucial penalty that could have tied it up and perhaps sent it to extra time. I was, obviously I picked England to go through that game, so I was a little frustrated there, but it is what it is. We have France, Argentina. Honestly, I think both semifinal games, especially Argentina versus Croatia, it felt like at halftime it was over. And I think after France scored 10 minutes into the game, it felt like it was always going to be very challenging for Morocco to find themselves back in it because that just plays so well into France's hands, right? They love to have space and they love to be able to kind of let the other opponent have the ball a little bit, right, and be able to break on the counter because they have not just speed but great creativity in the final third. So it felt like both semifinals had some intrigue to them, but it just felt like, honestly, especially after the first goals went in, it really felt like it was only going one way, unfortunately.
Yeah, I mean, shout out to Morocco, man. They just played some really good football the entire tournament. They've made it tough for other teams to play well. I think they exposed some things about France, which make me worry for their success come the final. I think that a lot of weaknesses, France has shown some of their weaknesses as they've progressed through these knockout stages, and I think that each team has kind of shown some of those, but France has just shown a way to overcome any team that tries to counter what they think is France's strong suit. We saw it with England when they kind of overloaded the side with Mbappe and it opened up for everybody else, which led to the Chouameni goal. We saw it today against Morocco. But they just have a way to overcome. I mean, they're so deep. Like, if you name the players that you would normally see playing for France that aren't at the World Cup currently, and they're in the final with the team that they have, I mean, credit to France, man. They're just so deep, and I think that that's an extremely valuable thing for a tournament like the World Cup. We're playing so many games in such a short amount of time. I'm excited to see them in the final. They could be the first team in a long time to back-to-back World Cup. So that could be quite the storyline, Matt, if that is to happen.
Yeah, France, too, I think coming into this tournament had some injury problems. Conte, Pogba not available for the World Cup. Benzema gets injured in training right before the World Cup. And it felt like maybe the needle was pointing the opposite direction for them. Luka Hernandez in the first game, like 20 minutes in, tears his ACL, and Teo Hernandez comes in. That felt to me at the time, and still has, as we saw today, where he scores in the semifinal, A bit of sometimes you're an injury away from getting, the best players on the field or having the right makeup. I think, again, Teo Hernandez, nearly the complete villain for this French team, of course, because he has an absolutely one of the most dumbest penalties I think I've ever seen given away by a player, especially given the circumstances and the context and the stage. It was just an absolutely brain-dead challenge that gave England the chance to tie it at 2-2 in that game. And again, obviously Kane misses the penalty, but he got really bailed out by that because I actually think if England score there, they might even win that in regular time just because I think the momentum is so much in their favor. But, outside of that, he's had a pretty good tournament. France has tons of talent. I think, that's going to be the big thing is Messi's obviously had a great World Cup, but I think Mbappe's actually been the best player I've seen at this tournament. He's just been on another level. He doesn't get any credits for goal creation today, but he very much does on France's second because he beats players with just an incredible piece of skill and close control, has a shot deflected, it falls into a path, and France got their second today. So he's been electric. It's probably, it's sort of, I think in some ways the storyline and the narrative for this game is really fascinating because you have Messi and you have Mbappe, right? And Messi very much at the other end of the stage of his career. He's in fact, apparently said that Sunday is going to be his last World Cup match, no matter what. He's at least, it seems like probably retiring, if not from international duty this year, it doesn't seem like maybe he has too many years left of international duty. Maybe he even doesn't have that many years of his professional career left either. Because he's 35.
Apparently making a move to the MLS.
We'll see. But Mbappe, is very much at the beginning stages of his career still, right? I mean, he's been around since his breakout was, the 16-17 season.
23.
Right, but he made that breakout as a very young player at his his first World Cup, winning the World Cup and being a key part of that team. In fact, these teams met at the 2018 World Cup, and it was a fantastic knockout game. It finished 4-3 France, obviously, because they ended up going on to win the tournament. But there's a lot of back and forth in the game. Some great goals scored in that game too. Some of the best goals of the tournament. Yeah, the Aguero late goal and a ton of drama in the final minutes of the match. So if we get something like that for the final again, that would be obviously very exciting. But yeah, I mean, you have like these two superstars. Again, Messi for me is the best player I've ever seen personally. But Mbappe, I'm not saying he's going to end up like Messi, but it's also like I have not been this impressed with a young player since Messi at that age. He is just on a different kind of path, a different kind of level from most other players.
It's absolutely ridiculous watching Mbappe play. Like, it doesn't matter how much football you watch and you watch like top quality, like high quality players, some of the best in the world. But when you watch Mbappe, there's just something special that you can see like in him that you don't see in every player. I think when we think of like recent times, I think the last time we saw a player this electric was when Neymar was young, coming from Santos and making the move to Europe. But I mean, I agree with you. Like when you're talking about just pure special players, we haven't seen a player like this since Messi. Mbappe is just to think he did what he did in the 2018 World Cup at 19 years old. And 4 years later, now he's, kind of, I don't want to say carrying France because, credit to guys like Olivier Giroud, who is the second highest scorer for France right now in this World Cup, tied. Well, I don't think now tied with Messi for goals, I think, right? Or are they still tied? Fact check me on that. But
I believe Messi has more goals than Giroud in the World Cup.
And it also goes without credit for, or I can't not get credit to Antoine Griezmann and how he's played for France, playing in that kind of number 10 role for them, and he's played very, very well. Not always on the stat sheet, but doing the right things to set up a lot of the plays that end up with goals for France. So I'm pretty sure that it was his involvement that led to the first goal anyway, correct?
Are we talking about Griezmann?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, right. So I think he's super vital to their success.
So right now the top scorers, Mbappe and Messi, both with 5. We can see that settled in the final. Julian Alvarez with 4, kind of coming out of nowhere.
Aguero 2.0.
I made the wrong bet on the wrong Argentinian attacker. I bet on Lautaro Martinez. That sucks.
How's that going?
Not great. Well, he could still have the most insane final ever, and make it happen. And Olivier Giroud on 4 goals as well. Those are your possibilities. There's really no one in the third place game either that could snake it, unless Kramaric has just an insane game. He's on 2 goals, but yeah, I just don't really see that happening. So, it's exciting.
What worries me about France is you saw in the England game that top quality wing play can kind of leave France kind of going into kind of desperation tackles. That their positioning wasn't always solid when a guy like Bukayo Saka was darting down the side and cutting in. Depending on where they play Messi, depending on who's on the wings for Argentina, they've got some guys that can be pretty creative out wide and can cut inside. And I think that if they get into the dangerous areas in and around the box, the way that France has been going in the tackles, you talked about Theo's challenge earlier. I think that that's something that can give Argentina a slight advantage, but also can turn this game into a big back and forth, just counterattack after counterattack, real electric football being played. And that can lead to a final for the ages. I think you said last week, right? This seems like one of those World Cups that we'll be telling our children about for years when they get older. And, to say that, we saw kind of Cristiano Ronaldo bow out, and then, Mbappe kind of is kind of now taking his place as that, young superstar, the next quote unquote greatest to play the game. And he's going against the greatest player to ever, play the game. It's really, really special. So, where my heart lies with this. So I want Messi to bow out, man. I want him to bow out on top and kind of cement that legacy of just, it's the one thing that's evaded me. I've gotten it. It's my time. I
would say most neutral fans probably feel the same way. I feel the same way. I would very much like to see Messi win the World Cup. I think for me, again, he's just the best player I've ever seen play. And I obviously can't speak to a lot of the previous greats, but I just have a hard time believing that he's not the best player to ever do it. And I think, to have the opportunity again, it felt like 2014 was really his opportunity to get it.
Mm-hmm.
And it just, obviously finals are that way. It's one game and anything can happen within it. And you just get beat by a moment of brilliance. And that's it. You're only one player. You can only influence so much, even though Messi can influence pretty much everything. There's just not a phase of the game that I don't think Messi has not been, not just graded, truly the best in the world at. For the longest, I maybe not as much anymore, but finishing, right? This was a guy that was just finishing chances, just an unreal level in just the simplest or cleanest ways possible. That it just made those chips look so easy that are just not easy at all. Passing, I think he still is one of the best passers in the world, but certainly at his peak was, if it wasn't for some of his teammates in Barcelona, like Xavi and Iniesta, was probably the best passer in the world. Dribbling, the dude still has just insane close control. It's unbelievable. He's such a unique player that I can imagine in my lifetime I might see another Cristiano Ronaldo. And I know that the debate always goes between these two players, and it just is what it is. But I can imagine in my lifetime we'll see another Cristiano Ronaldo. In fact, you might be seeing someone similar in Erling Haaland, right? Where it's just this clearly physically dominant, incredible instinct and ability to just get the goals, right? Just knows all the spots to be in, but just does not have that completely rounded out game like Messi has. Messi to me is just I just have a hard time believing that I'll see another Messi in my lifetime. I really do. And it's just it would feel very good to me to see him wrap it up with a World Cup, right? And sort of that this be the end of his like Argentina career, and then it's that kind of that crowning moment for him because really there's nothing else to win at that point.
Mm-hmm.
I also just feel like France winning a game would be a little bit boring. I felt this when we got to the quarterfinals. I was like, damn, it's kind of exciting. Like any one of these teams, I think would be cool. Except France, like it's just I don't know. Like it'd be cool to see Mbappe win 2 World Cups at his age. Don't get me wrong. I think that'd be great. And then you had the conversation about him potentially winning a third. Like at something like, and then you start getting into real rarefied air that way. So that's kind of the only cool part of it for me. Just in general, I have nothing against this France team. It's not like I have any bias or vendetta against them. In fact, I'd love to see Konate, potentially win a World Cup. That would be cool. It's always nice when a Liverpool player is involved in this way. But I also just like, it's a little hard to want to be picking France over Argentina on a sentimental value, at least.
Yeah, I feel that same way, right? I would love to see Taylor Hernandez win his first World Cup. I would love to see Olivier Giroud get his second World Cup, right? These are my guys right here we're talking about. But man, it's Messi. Just I would love for it. It's the great. I don't have the proper words to describe this guy and what he's done since I became a fan of the game and started watching football a lot more closely and you talk about his touch close his close control. That goal against Athletic Bilbao kind of stands out, right? He's dribbling through 6-7 guys all at the same time. It just comes out on the other end of the ball, and then he just simply he makes it look so easy at the top level. It just simply just hits it.
Do you know how mean I could be right now? I think one of my favorite goals by Messi ever was that goal against Milan in the comeback in the Champions League. Just beautifully curled into the top corner, just with authority. I just think. Are
you talking about the game that Pato set like the record for the fastest goal scored in Champions League history? Are you talking about that game?
Yeah. I mean, we could do. I think we could honestly do a whole podcast on Messi alone. I just think he's just that type of player where I think everyone who's and again too, like we're of an age where we grew up with Messi. He was the player for us even when we were like really watching it week in and week out, just starting, right? Like, and then, we just, again, for me, and I'm sure it's the same for you, we very vividly remember those Real Madrid Barcelona Clásicos, and those were just the 2 best teams in the world at the time with the truly, I don't know that we'll ever get moments close. I think the only thing we've gotten close to in recent times has been some of those Liverpool Man City ones, but I don't think they've had the star power that those have had. I think those teams
we're talking about 2 teams that filled up the FIFA Best 11 of the world for like back to back years. The only player that wasn't on Real Madrid or Barcelona was like Manuel Neuer. That was it. Right. So that is the level that we're talking about right here.
Yeah, I think Liverpool and City have gotten close just in terms of like the quality of the team, but as far as individual players, I don't think it's gotten to those levels. And I just, again, I don't know that we ever will, because you have already what is a bitter rivalry with 2 of the best players on the planet at the time, and Messi's for me the best player I've ever seen, and Ronaldo's one of the best players I've ever seen too. I don't want to diminish his entire career, right? Just because Messi's better,
This is a Messi podcast.
It is. I've always been a Messi over Ronaldo truther, just because I think it's hard not to be. I think also like personality wise and off the field things. Although Messi's not exactly an angel, Mr. Saudi Arabia money and tax evasion, but. I think again, for me, Messi's just, it's hard to pick anyone else. It is hard to pick anyone else.
The point you make again about Mbappe being in the potential conversation, especially if France wins, to be a player to win 3 World Cups, we're getting to Pele level like greatness if that's to happen. That's kind of crazy. I mean. However, we're talking about Messi. Basically, we're saying Messi has surpassed Pele. All right, is this something that we
Yeah, I
all
mean,
agree on?
Pele
Like,
is like an icon of the game, right? Like, but it's very hard, and this is with every sport. Pele's best years were like in the 60s and 70s, right? Which is just on its own is already just such a different time. That is not to say that if Pele were playing today, that he would be like, a replacement level player. He'd be very average, but it's hard to compare. Like the level of competition that Pele was facing was not anywhere close to what players are facing today and the rigor that they're facing today. Now, Pele would obviously benefit from all the things that we have now too, right? The increased nutrition, better, fitness routines, and all that, like better technologies in general. Totally. For me, like, I'm sorry, like I just think it's completely different what Messi has done throughout his career, which has been definitively against the best players in the world, the best competition for the last 15 years.
no.
It's just hard to make that comparison.
I also like some of the younger players amongst both of these teams that can start making a name for themselves in world football. Most notably Julian Alvarez, who, had a brace against Croatia. He's playing pretty well for City as well. I just called him Aguero 2.0, basically. Like the kid seems to have it, and he's one of those players that, although he has already made that big move to a top club. There are some other players. If we're just talking about these four semifinal teams, right? These four semifinal teams, who are some of the younger players or players that you think kind of made themselves a name for potential transfers either over this winter or over the summer? And, I'm not talking about like bigger name, younger guys like Hakim Ziyech, right? He's in the rumor mill again. So I don't mean those guys. Like, I'm talking about a guy.
Young because he'll appreciate that, but
He's not. But like, for example, like a Josef Guardiola, right?
Guardiola is the clear number one guy that I think has this World Cup did a lot for his stock. He was already going to be very expensive to begin with, but there's no way Leipzig is letting him go for any amount below like 100 million at this point. He's had a great point. I would say Real Madrid, I'm sure, is very happy that Tchouaméni is already at Real Madrid because he's had a very good tournament. He's looked very good at that midfield. I've been really, really impressed with him. It's hard to say because honestly, a lot of the guys that have caught the eye are established players, or the young players that have already made that big move, like Julian Alvarez, right? If he's not at Man City this past summer, is certainly a name that I think people are talking about. Enzo Fernandez is someone in Argentina that's getting a lot of buzz now. He's obviously played very well in the midfield there. He's only 21 years old. I could totally see teams lining up for him. In fact, they apparently already are. For this January window. I know Naif Ajerd for Morocco moved to West Ham. I remember we profiled him when he moved. He got injured early on the season and then had a pretty good World Cup again. I know he struggled with injury through the World Cup at moments, but if I'm West Ham, I'm looking forward to getting him back and seeing how he gets along. Amrabat from Morocco, I know has caught a lot of teams' eyes. And
he's been rumored with your team.
Yes, but his agent said that he's actually like really happy at Fiorentina, and they took a chance on him, and that they're going to show some loyalty. So we'll see how that turns out. But yeah, I think largely speaking though, for like breakout stars, at least up to the semifinals, the only other like big name that I think is clearly like had a great World Cup and is clearly moving within the next year is Jude Bellingham. Like that's the only other name that I can think of related that got in the later stages of the tournament. That's he's going to be making a big move and it's going to be, he's going to be a player you're hearing about for the next 10 years.
Yeah. Any guys from the U.S.?
Musa definitely could, he's been rumored. He was rumored with Liverpool before the World Cup, and I've seen those links pop up again. I would not, for whatever reason, we haven't even covered this actually, but Juventus's whole board resigned. Because we've obviously had the World Cup.
I completely forgot about that.
Right. Most of us did because we've just been in the throes of all this. But Weston McKennie, was already kind of rumored to be out the door with Juventus, which I don't fully understand because I think he's a capable midfielder. But, could be someone that people like. Pulisic has been kind of up for sale for the last, 18 months. You're doing your Jack Nicholson sicko mode.
Yes, bring McKinney over.
I think there's quite a few U.S. players. I know Anthony Robinson too. I think has been rumored to a few places.
He's been rumored with Milan.
Yeah, I think there's quite a few of those U.S. guys that might get some rumors, some looks along the way. But I just think, it's hard to say. Like, because we've also never had a World Cup in this situation where we're going into a January transfer window, which is historically just not been a very active window, whereas the summer very much is. So we'll see. We'll see how it shapes up in like post World Cup in terms of transfers. Looking ahead to the final.
Can I just bring this up just to make this statement? Because I wanted to say this as well. I just didn't want to interrupt you. Kyle left a comment saying, is Pele like the Bill Russell when it comes to all-time greats combo for soccer? I was going to say Wilt Chamberlain, right? A lot of my students nowadays, I'm talking basketball with them, and they say, oh, did Wilt really score 100 points? And I'm like, there are official NBA scorebooks that say yes, this did happen. But then they're saying like, oh, he's playing against like Johnny, who just got off his 9-to-5 plumbing shift, and he's coming to play basketball, and so that kind of conversation, it seems to be said around Pele as well when you're talking about his prime years and what they were doing. It was actually kind of crazy because like clubs like Santos or you hear this with Garrincha. I forget where he played, but they would go on tours around the world. They didn't play in a league almost. They were playing like the top teams from around the world that they could schedule games with during their seasons, and kind of just did this whole world tour type deal. So it's not like he's playing slouch Brazilians, in the 50s and 60s. He's playing established professional football teams, but again, 50s and 60s. So, I think that's a pretty accurate comparison.
Bill Russell's a good one too, because no one's ever going to touch Bill Russell's rings record. I would be, I know we're talking about Mbappe, but Pele has the most World Cups with 3. Mbappe could, there's absolutely no doubt, but it's just like, first of all, he'd have to win this one, because I don't know that in 2026 and 2030 that he's having to make it. You also have to avoid injury, you can just get very unlucky, and you might be a very healthy player for most of your career, but if you just miss a week, there's your World Cup hopes gone. The World Cup is just such a balance, it's so tricky, and you just everything, not everything, but so many things have to go right for you. Not to say that it's lucky to win a World Cup, but things have to break the right way, and it can just be so easy with such few amount of games and such high variance and high quality that you're playing, especially in the later stages, that it just goes wrong for you. So yeah, I think it would be very hard for me. Now, of course, if Mbappe and France wins on Sunday, then you're on. Then you would imagine Mbappe's at the next 2 World Cups, and France do not seem like a nation that is going to just all of a sudden stop producing top talents and not going to have a great world. What that would do for Didier Deschamps' legacy as well, by the way, because he's one of the few players already to win as a player and as a manager. Yeah. Now you're talking about winning it twice.
You're talking about, you're getting into greatest managers of all time realm kind of deal.
You're talking about Zinedine Zidane, who's apparently been waiting on this man's downfall to take over the French national team, being like the skeleton at the bottom of the ocean meme. It's how long is this man going to be waiting on the French job? Because if this dude wins a World Cup, he's going to be there in 2026 if he wants to be.
I can't wait.
I think he probably already is right now.
I can't wait for the memes where if eventually Zidane does become the France national team coach, whatever social media platform at the time is going to have that "it's been 84 years" GIF just played, because if France win this, the shop's going nowhere.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, already I think he's definitely bought himself the next Euros if he wants it. It would be hard. It'd be hard to see. Yeah, I mean, we have not had a back-to-back World Cup finals appearance since Brazil in 98 and then 2002. That, it's not something I imagine really happening again. I just think because there's so many quality national teams, it can just be hard. And I really did not think France were going to be the team to do that exactly. And it just felt like, again, coming into the tournament and then the first week of the tournament with the injuries that you pick up, it kind of just felt like, man, it just feels like it's kind of breaking wrong for them. And it just hasn't. And I think so much of that credit, again, we picked out a lot of the other key players, but this team is clearly lived, and I can't even say died with, because they haven't really died in this tournament, but they've lived and thrived with Mbappe's ability. Like, he was just, even when he's not creating the goals himself, the gravity that he has as a player, where he is constantly pulling in 3-4 defenders, is just like, the only other person that I see do that with the regularity that Mbappe does is, by the way, his club teammate, Lionel Messi. It's just kind of insane. You have these two team up now too for PSG, and that has not been an experiment that has gone perfectly. Their goal is obviously much broader than just winning the French league, and they have not been able to do that. But I do think it's kind of funny, too, that like these two guys, again, just at very different stages of their career, and they happen to be teammates now. And it feels very poetic, and it feels like if this is something in a book or a movie, people would kind of roll their eyes at and be like, "Oh, like of course, right?" Like the guy who has never been able to win at this stage, who is now here, at that very sort of like the twilight of his career with the chance to lift the ultimate prize and establish himself as the guy, and then it's like, well, his teammate, the young star who's already won it once and is now looking to establish himself also as the best of all time, right? Like, it's just like, I mean, come on, what I think, without even getting the fact that these have been two of the better teams at the tournament, and I think it is a final, a worthy final, like of a World Cup stage, and not that we've had like the 2018 World Cup was also great, but it really feels like these two teams, like, man, I honestly think if pre-tournament, if you had picked two teams that I think people would have liked to see in a final again, I think this would have been a big matchup for a lot of people, or like they would have like winged it. So like a Brazil Argentina one would have happened some way. One of them would have had to drop the second in their group for that to be the possibility. But I think especially people really wanted Argentina. We both picked Argentina to win the World Cup, so that feels nice. But we, from our favorites group, because even coming into the tournament, they were playing really well. It's strange because they lose the first game, but it does feel like each game since has been a little bit better. Like maybe that second game they only played great against Mexico for maybe 25 minutes, and then Poland they control a little bit more, and then they sort of snowballed since then. Each game I felt like I've actually liked Argentina's performance just a little bit more, and France, I think, have largely not been bothered a ton this tournament. They've had some shaky moments at times, which could be exploited, and we've seen that. And I think they were really close against England of red needling a little bit. They were in the danger zone quite a bit, but they navigated those tough moments, and that speaks a lot to their just individual quality too.
That was like the first time that France actually had to like try this World Cup. It almost seemed like they were on autopilot throughout the entire like tournament. The group stage was like nothing for them. The first round knockout stage was like nothing to them. So like they've just been on this, kind of coast throughout the tournament. And the first time they actually had to start navigating, tough situations was against England. And then this game today, when they played Morocco, was not an easy 2-0 win, right? So it's they're starting to be challenged, but they're rising to the occasion. Argentina has kind of had this building wave, like tsunami wave of form, right? Where, they go on this tear, they win the Copa America. So Messi finally gets his international trophy, but then it continues, and they qualify for the World Cup, and they're in the World Cup, and even though they've had some shaky performances, it's still built, and now they've got this big wave of momentum taking them to this World Cup final, and it's hard not to root for them, right? for a multitude of reasons that we've already talked about earlier in the show. And you talk about depth. They have some attacking depth, but that attacking depth has kind of not lived up to expectation. We mentioned Lautaro Martinez earlier in the show, who kind of, has missed some easier chances and had his opportunities to kind of get on the score sheet. And even like a guy like Paulo Dybala, who is a top quality player in Italy, yet my guy has not seen a lot of playing time. Again, he's a player coming off of injury still. But he's kind of like a player when they're kind of coasting at the end of a match, they just bring him in. They have that depth where they can kind of switch guys in and out. It's almost like Argentina's been playing like this for like center midfield, almost like, I guess like McAllister is more of like the advanced attacking midfielder, and then like DePaul, Paredes and Fernandez kind of just stay in the midfield. But
they've been playing like a 4-4-2.
They're playing center mids out wide.
Yeah,
like it is. But they can bring in guys like Angel Correa or Dybala. Those guys can play out wide, or they can play up front. I mean, you can go to a front three and bring in Lautaro. So they have like options.
I think it speaks a lot to their depth that Angel Di Maria, who's not been able to play a lot of this World Cup because of injury, has not even been a talking point, like he's not been someone that's like, man, if only they had Di Maria in this game. Like they really just have not needed that, and he was a guy that I think for me I felt like coming in the tournament a little bit more of an X factor than he's been, and part of that's just been injury, right? And he was struggling with injury already at Juventus this year. But yeah, I think both these teams have like interesting guys to bring off the bench, which could obviously make the final interesting too. And I mean, a lot of the finals recently as well have gone to extra time. 2018 World Cup was the first World Cup in 3 to not go to extra time, right? In 2006 you have it go to penalties, which is obviously super exciting. And then in 2010 and 2014 both games settled in extra time. A lot of time finals, 2018 there was a good amount of goals and it was exciting, but that is definitely, I would say, the exception rather than the rule. Typically finals, no matter what, but especially like something like the World Cup, are a lot cager and a lot more low scoring, and usually it's a 1 or 2 goal type of game.
It's a tactical battle.
It becomes a game where teams do not want to lose the final rather than necessarily want to go out and win it. So I think people hoping for the fireworks might be a little disappointed. That it could happen, of course, but just historically, the World Cup finals are not, we're not getting, I don't think, like a 2018 final where we have 6 goals. I would just be a little surprised by that. I don't know that we're going to get just like run it back from 2018 between these two teams where it's 4-3 something. Like I would be a little surprised at that, despite all the attacking talent you have on the field, clearly.
I got a question for you. Now that we're coming up to the end of the World Cup, have there been any players that kind of disappointed you during this tournament?
Man, how much time you got? Man, I think a player that disappointed me was Kevin De Bruyne. I really felt like he's obviously been great for City the last however many, but especially the last 2 years, I feel like De Bruyne has really kind of evolved as a player, and he was already a great player. I just did not think he had a very strong World Cup, which was disappointing for me. I felt like he could have had a much better showing. And I think as far as like big stars, I think had, that opportunity to kind of like really establish himself, right? And just was not able to do that. For me, that's probably the biggest name that I felt like, man, I just did not see it from him this tournament. And I was disappointed by that, by the performances and just by the lack of output.
Mm. Where do you think this now kind of ranks him on like that, like all-time midfielders list, given that kind of Modric has had, another run in a World Cup and obviously it's bittersweet how maybe his international career is ending, and he's another one of these players in the twilight of his career. Kind of, you don't know how many more years he's going to be playing at Real Madrid at this level, even though it seems like he doesn't get old. We've said this before.
We've
said that forever, right? So
we're saying that going into 2018, and we've been saying it ever since. So who knows?
So do you think that Kevin De Bruyne isn't at that level yet? It's a weird thing to talk about, right? Like,
I think Kevin De Bruyne is in a similar tier to Modric. I do. I think Modric has obviously ended up with more success, and he's obviously won the Champions League a bunch, and could be again finishing in third position at the World Cup. He's at least going to finish top 4, which is a big achievement. Also, Croatia's in the Nations League final, which wraps up this summer. They're in the semifinal, I should say. So that's like, obviously not a tournament that we recognize as like a big deal, but it is like, it is something.
I think that's because it's new. It's
right. It's because it's brand new. But I think as the years go on, might be something a little more prestigious. Like whatever.
Mm-hmm.
For me, like I still look at De Bruyne and I think like he is just one of the best like breaking the lines midfielders I think I've ever seen. Modric and him are just different, and I think this is the challenging part with midfielders in comparing them, is that you can just have completely different roles, and Modric is not asked to do the same things that De Bruyne is asked to do, and vice versa.
That's true.
And I think both could like fill each other's roles in a similar type of way, but I don't know that that's their strengths. Like, I don't know that Modric played it as advanced as De Bruyne is at times. It's playing Modric to his best abilities, and vice versa. Playing De Bruyne maybe a little bit deeper like Modric has, especially in recent years, is maybe necessarily his best role. Like, I just think that they're different types of midfielders, but they're both, to me, like, for me, when I think of just the best midfielders that I've seen in my life, those two will be on my list. Like, I will be talking about Kevin De Bruyne and Luka Modric for, probably my whole life. They're like, you don't know good midfielders till you watch Luka Modric or Kevin De Bruyne, like.
So then I'm guessing the pool of similar players that Modric would be found in, then, if we're going to talk about that top tier, Andrea Pirlo, Xavi, Gerrard, right? Like these are like the three.
I'd say
names
Gerrard
that I can
is
think
more
of.
in a De Bruyne compared like mold of player, like in that like Gerrard could do a little bit of everything, but is definitely most known for his like getting forward, scoring, whipping and crosses. I don't know that he's like, Gerrard was never like a tempo type of midfielder, like like Iniesta, Modric, Pirlo. These were guys that were really responsible for like pulling the strings. Like Xabi Alonso on Liverpool was that for Steven Gerrard. Like, and Xabi Alonso, I think, gets left out of the conversations a lot too when we talk about the great midfielders of our age. Like, this is a guy that did at Liverpool, Madrid, Bayern. Like, he's had quite the career, Mr. Xabi.
Quite the resume.
And he's very handsome too. That always helps.
Hey, you ain't lying about that, right? The only reason I asked that is because I saw like a thread. It was like you gotta start one, bench one, sell one, and it was Pirlo, Iniesta, and Modric.
I saw your tweet that you sent to me. I didn't respond to it because I saw it and then just.
What do you think about my take then? For those of you who are listening and don't know what I tweeted, I said I would. What did I say? I'd start Modric, I'd bench Pirlo, and I'd sell Iniesta in his prime because Iniesta is going to make my club the most money. And then I take that money and build around, these two other absolutely amazing midfielders. What do you think?
For me, Iniesta is the best midfielder of those three for me.
Oh, hands down. I agree.
And I would be starting my best player. Between benching and selling Modric, I guess I don't think you're thinking about it in the wrong way, where you think about just who you're getting the most value for. Pirlo always felt like a little bit of just like an undervalued player. But I think I would just much rather be bringing on Modric rather than Pirlo. Maybe it's not the most financially smart decision, right? Maybe I could be making more by selling Modric. But for me, this is more a question of like, essentially, would you rather have Iniesta and Modric or Iniesta and Pirlo? And I think I would rather have Iniesta than Modric, which is no disrespect to Pirlo. Great midfielder, great player. I just think Modric is probably a tier ahead of him.
You know me though. I'm very biased.
I know you.
I'm very biased,
and I respect the bias.
You know what they used to call me when we used to play pro clubs. You know, the young.
I know what I used to call you, and I'm not going to say it on
air. They called me Young Pirlo, right? So
there was at least one person who called you Young Pirlo. I think it was you. Before we get out of here, let me hear your prediction for Sunday. Who's lifting that beautiful, iconic trophy?
2-1 Argentina extra time winner. Messi scores 1, Mbappe scores 1, and then I don't know who scores the last one. I think maybe Julian gets a goal. But yeah, I think that, is the cherry on the top for Messi's career.
I love the picture that you've painted. I want to be there too, so I'm rolling with you. I'm going to say 1-0 Argentina. In regular time, I think this one gets settled before going to the extra period. Listen, we both picked Argentina at the beginning of this World Cup as one of our favorite picks. We picked a favorite and then a dark horse. We both went with Argentina. And I got to roll with the team that I picked from the beginning. That's just it. I think it's going to be exciting, though. I think even though, again, like I said, the finals are a little bit more cagey than I think people remember them, or want them to be. I do think these two teams, with the quality they have, can make this, even if it is 0-0 and, there's not a ton of action, it's going to be exciting still, right? Like, I just think they both have that capacity to make even sort of the more dull moments in the game a little bit more interesting and engaging. I think it helps, too, that if this French team has obviously already been, a large portion of this team has already been at a World Cup and has won a World Cup. And Argentina is going to be led by a guy who has already been to a World Cup final and lost one, and has been in just about every other high-pressure situation you could possibly be in. Like, that's a big moment. And I don't know. I just think it is hard for me in a one-off game, even though Lionel Messi is not at the absolute peak of his powers anymore, to bet against him. It's just hard for me to do. Don't know how I can do it.
Very hard.
I won't.
Very difficult.
We will be back next week, Dom, and you, listener, will be able to hear us and catch us break down the World Cup final, eulogize about Messi's career, or cheer about it, like celebrate what a great moment it was. And guess what, Dom? The fucking Premier League's back after that, baby. We're right back in it. You're right back in it. We're only like a week and a half away from the Premier League back. We got to wait a little bit for Italy. They're still taking their winter break, of course. Got to respect the hustle, or I guess lack thereof. But I still wanted to take Natale off.
Christmas time is special over there,
and enjoy your panettone and wait for La Befana to come and all the good stuff about Christmas time in Italy. Anything to say before we get out of here, though?
Number one, what is what's Top Bin's follower count currently? Do you know off the top of your head?
On which platform, Dom? Because you can find us on YouTube. You can find us anywhere you get podcasts. and you can find us on Twitter, of course.
We talking Twitter followers then? We want to talk Twitter followers?
We're talking 75 on Twitter, baby.
If you get us to 300, why don't we do a podcast specifically for Messi?
I call that a deal, baby. I call that a deal.
All right, so when we reach 300 followers, we are going to do the Messi podcast over here. Also, go to phiapparel.com and use code underground for 10% off your order. We have merch, ladies and gentlemen. We have merch. Go support the podcast. Go support your favorite network, and show us some love. Help us put some food on the table. My last words closing. Follow me on Twitch. I'm starting to stream a little bit more. Twitch.tv/aharryape. I saw my Twitch recap for this year, and I got motivated to start streaming again. So I'm going to do that. And I had two players that disappointed me this World Cup, one of which is on the back of this jersey. And the second one is his compatriot, Gonzalo Ramos, who made a name for himself by infamously benching Cristiano Ronaldo and scoring a hat trick while doing so. But he is now getting the William Saliba treatment because he has had nudes leaked on the internet. Well done. Well done.
That's not his fault. Are you blaming him? What are you doing here?
No, I'm not blaming him, but it's just funny.
It felt like you were blaming him. I got to say,
no. I was actually very confused because I saw somebody tweet about him, like mentioning him and relating him to Saliba, and I was like, I have to search this now. So I searched it up on Twitter, and I saw the video right away, and that's now burned into my brain.
I thought the Saliba scandal was that it was a teammate that
it was a teammate. Saliba didn't do it himself. It was a teammate that he kind of panned when he was like sitting right next to him. It was really weird, but this one was wild. You get a
I'm not Googling this time, and it felt like you're blaming the guy. I think you should
no, I'm not blaming him. Sorry. I'm blaming him for his trust in these hoes. But
Jesus Christ.
Anyway, we gotta end the show.
Yeah, I gave you so many lifelines there. I gave you so many ladders to get out of that water, and you just shoved them away each time.
Nah,
that's all on you, brother. We'll be back next week, maybe, depending on if Dom's canceled or not for his his regrettable speech. We'll talk to you next week, everybody. Stay safe.